team this season has an if, a thing that must happen for them to be successful this season, right? Which I will just say is at the very least a winning record for a lot of these schools, right? So I'll just start at the top. This is no particular order, by the way, but I think Kentucky. Kentucky's got a lot of talent. Kentucky is actually touted as one of the more underrated teams in the entire SEC. When people are picking a dark horse, Kentucky is one of the teams that comes up. And they're a very talented football team. They're returning a lot of guys from last year. And if they live up to that potential, this is their if. If they live up to that potential, they can honestly be successful. But also, they have to beat Florida and Tennessee. If they beat Florida and Tennessee and live up to their potential, they'll be very successful. And Kentucky has reason to believe that it's very successful. And at the very least, we know that they believe they could be very successful. If you look at their weight room has the bracket of the college football playoff. And they've got Kentucky penciled into one of the spots. So Kentucky thinks Kentucky can make it. Can they actually make it? Well, look, they beat Florida. They beat Tennessee. The rest of their schedule is doable, right? They open the season against Southern Miss. They can win that. They can win Eastern Kentucky, right? They play South Carolina, third week of the season, September 16th. They can win that, right? Now, let's say they beat Florida. Florida fans, do not call this show pounding down the door talking about what you mean if Kentucky beats Florida. This is a hypothetical. Leave me alone. Let's say they beat Florida. They're 4-0 heading into week 5 against Eastern Michigan. Like, this is not something that's impossible for them. They've got Missouri. They've got a bye week. They've got Miss State. Look, I like Miss State a lot, but they're going to need baller performances from guys like Nick Fitzgerald, right? Like, Miss State is a beatable West team. Then they get Tennessee, right? Now, let's say that they beat Tennessee. They're undefeated. At this point, they're undefeated. Outside of Florida and Tennessee, there isn't a team on this schedule that I don't think they ought to struggle with. Then they play Ole Miss, who is awful. Then they play Vandy. Then they play Georgia. If they lose to Georgia and beat Louisville, and they beat Louisville like a drum last year, and Louisville is not better last year or better this year than they were last year, there's possible they were underdogs playing Louisville last year. They're not underdogs this year. We're looking at a season where Kentucky could potentially lose just one game if, and that's a very big if they only lose to Georgia. Right? I don't think that they beat Florida. And honestly, I don't think they beat Tennessee either. But if they do, we are looking at a horrifying Kentucky team. I mean, this is a good team and a weak schedule. Like, everything is lined up for them. And then if they want to make the playoff, they go to the title game and they don't have to beat Alabama. They just have to hang with Alabama. I don't know how you do that. That's tough. That's a tough spot. But if they hang with Alabama, even have a lead for a decent chunk of the game, who knows? Who knows? Like, success for Kentucky looks like win the East, because it's possible. Because your schedule is easy enough in spots and you are good enough, you can do it. Kentucky could make a run. Now, like I said, the talent's got to live up to that potential that everyone says that they have, but a lot of people feel like Kentucky can win more games than Tennessee this year. I'm not one of those people, but I'm just saying it's possible. It is possible. I'm not going to rule it out. South Carolina, last year, their offense surprised us. They found their stride. Jake Bentley was a revelation. But here's their big if. Here's what South Carolina needs to do. If South Carolina wants to be successful, South Carolina's defense needs to catch up to their offense. They were not a very solid unit defensively last year, and a lot of improvements need to be made. Will Muschamp is a defensive guy, and you would think that that turnaround would begin this season, but I have to see it to believe it with them. They cannot have any more games this season, big games especially, where they rely purely on the offense to continue to surprise us. And the defense is not existent, especially in that secondary. South Carolina's big if is that the defense needs to catch up to the offense. The offense needs to stay good. Missouri's big if, and success for Missouri, by the way, simply looks like winning record, because last year they were abysmal. They were 4-8, and two of their wins were tiny non-conference schools that nobody cares about. Missouri's success simply looks like winning record. Just have a winning record. Okay? And Drew Lock needs to play like the best quarterback in the SEC East. And I think that's going to be tough, right? If Malik Zaire is as good as Jim McElwain hopes he is, that's going to be tough, right? Kyle Shermer and Vandy is a very good quarterback. It's going to be tough to outplay him. Jacob Eason should be better. Going to be tough to outplay him, right? I think you can outplay Quentin Dormady. I'm not too worried about that. But I think that there are a lot of teams in the East. Jake Bentley, we mentioned him before. Outplay that guy. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the SEC East that are very good quarterbacks. And Drew Lock needs to play better than all of them if Missouri wants to be successful this season. And Barry Odom needs to install his culture in this locker room, because I feel like the culture last year was our pants are on fire. Gary Pinkel's gone. That was the culture last year. That cannot be the culture again. It simply put cannot be the culture. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM, just talking about the big ifs. What does it take for SEC schools to be successful, especially in the East, right? We'll do the West tomorrow. I need to finish that research up, but we'll do the West tomorrow. The big if for every SEC East team, Vandy. Derek Mason's done a great job at Vanderbilt his entire time. And by the way, I hear that Derek Mason gets to be more and more consistent and comfortable in his own skin every SEC media days that goes by, which I like. I heard that he was very uncomfortable in the first season, which makes sense. You know, your first time going there, and it's big and loud and in Hoover. And now he takes it in stride. He's a veteran coach. I hope Derek Mason stays with Vandy. I like him a lot. But he needs to have his defense maintained. Vandy's defense was incredible last year. But their offense, they struggled to find points. They really did. Moving the ball from 20 to 20 was not necessarily a problem for Vandy, but punching it in was difficult. And they did not score enough touchdowns in order to beat other teams. You can put 3 on the board all day, but if they're scoring 7 and you're scoring 3, you lose. You did not want to, last year, get caught in a low-scoring game with Vandy. You didn't want this defensive duel nonsense with them. They're capable of beating you there. But Vandy struggled to find points, and if you were able to put it up on the board against them, they really were not able to beat you. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Just talking about the big ifs of SEC football, especially the big ifs, of the SEC East. Here's what it takes if you want to be successful in the SEC East and you're Georgia. Jacob Eason. That's my only if. If Jacob Eason. It's not a grammatically correct sentence. Georgia will be successful if Jacob Eason. But that's how I feel. Because Jacob Eason is the key. He's the key. Now, I've listened to a lot of college football podcasts and been reading a lot of college football writers. And there are some people out there who believe that Jacob Eason was fine and even regressed last year. And they blame the offense for that, right? Like they blame the fact that the offense didn't really open up, didn't provide a whole lot for Jacob Eason. He was not protected very well by the offensive line. He got beat up a lot. And it's not Jacob Eason's fault that he regressed last year. It's a symbiotic relationship. You cannot pin a quarterback's failings, even a freshman quarterback, even a true freshman quarterback. You cannot pin a quarterback's failings entirely on the coaching and the offense and the play calling. A lot of this is Jacob Eason too. He did not make consistently the intermediate to short plays that he could have made to allow Georgia to be successful last year. I thought his deep ball was fine, but even then he threw some ducks. He was not as accurate as he could have been. Now you could say, well, Jacob Eason should be better than 55% completion, right? And there is a certain degree of that you do put that at the feet of Kirby Smart, and you do put that at the feet of the offense. But Jacob Eason's got to play better. He does. I think he personally got happy feet in the pocket. He got a little gun shy, and he's gonna have to throw with a lot more conviction and accuracy, right? Like when a guy is inaccurate, I don't blame the offense. I blame the guy. Be accurate, right? And you're a 5-star talent. People are talking about you're the best in the conference. I'm looking at you. You throw more than 55%. So I'm saying Georgia can be successful. I think Georgia can be the best of the East. I picked them to win the East, but Jacob Eason's going to have to give us a lot more, and I think he will. That's why I picked him. Clutch with Keon Rose. We're talking about the big ifs for every SEC team. Tennessee, the Vols have to have answers. This is their if. If they have answers for the big name talents that they lost, Dobbs, Kamara, Barnett, Reeves-Maben, and so on. Because this is the most Vols I've ever seen lost to the NFL draft since I've been here. If Tennessee is able to be dynamic, right? Replace that talent with more dynamic talent, then yeah, we have a year where everybody's sleeping on Tennessee. That's the year that we've got, and we could potentially be that, right? And I think people are sleeping on Tennessee a little bit. Like people are acting right now like Tennessee's going to win 6 or 7 games. I think Tennessee wins 8 comfortably. Probably like maybe 9, but I will feel safe saying 8 if they have answers to the big name talent that they lost. And finally, Florida, if they can get the most out of Malik Zaire or Felipe Franks, depending on who plays, because I think Zaire starts the season. I don't know if Zaire finishes the season just based on his injury history. But if they get the most out of Malik Zaire or Felipe Franks, and people were raving about Franks before Zaire got here. It's not like Florida needed Malik Zaire to be any particular kind of successful. If they're able to get the most out of those guys, I think they'll be successful because Jim McElwain, like people have blamed Jim McElwain for the offense looks like this and the offense looks like that, and it's been kind of boring and they haven't been able to score consistently. And I'm like, look at those quarterbacks. Look at the quarterbacks. Look at them, right? I'm the guy that blames the quarterbacks when the offense doesn't function. I don't blame the offense for not making the quarterbacks good. Austin Appleby's not taking you anywhere. Like, what do you expect? Look at him throw the football. Does that look like a guy who can take you anywhere? Oh, but Luke Del Rio, he's not taking you anywhere either. Okay? He's not. He's just not. Florida's going to be better this year because their quarterbacks are better. And if they play consistently, Florida will be successful. And it's going to be a 2-man race. Georgia or Florida? Florida or Georgia? Someone's going to have the inside track. Watch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops say a woman's been shot on Cypress Street courts at 1:30 a.m. Thursday morning. Her body was apparently pulled out of an apartment building, and an investigation is ongoing. Findings of a year-long investigation into possible conflict of interest in the sheriff's office in Bradley County regarding Sheriff Eric Watson have been turned into a grand jury. The findings of the investigation have not yet been disclosed, and no charges have been filed as of now. Jonathan E. Walker, the driver of the bus involved in the Woodmore bus crash, is charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, but his attorney believes that he should be put in an alternative sentencing program which would divert him out of the criminal justice system. The plan will be put before a judge for consideration. The county commission has rescinded a resolution in a 7-2 vote, which would have required the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau to follow county purchasing, travel, and expense policies. Commissioners Tim Boyd and Randy Fairbanks voted to keep the resolution in place. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Staying quite warm and muggy out there through your nighttime hours with fair skies, lows 72 to 75. For Friday, a very hot, humid day, highs in many areas soaring into the mid-90s, mainly dry. For Saturday, an isolated afternoon shower storm possible back into the lower 90s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the number one Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose show. Nooga Radio is the station. And I didn't watch the soccer game yesterday. El Salvador versus the United States men's soccer team. I didn't watch the game yesterday because it's CONCACAF, and I only watched the CONCACAF final if the U.S. is playing. If they're not playing, I don't care. And I know it's important. These are an important set of games for them to make the World Cup, but I don't ever assume the U.S. is going to miss the World Cup. The day that happens, though, understand that I will be furious, and that'll be the entire show. We're better than that, okay? We're in a region of the world where we can dominate, at least athletically, in the game of soccer. We may not have the most skilled players, but we can at least athletically dominate in that sport to get to the World Cup. Now, are we winning it? I can't tell you that. But we can dominate CONCACAF. So no, I don't need to sit down and watch it, right? But yesterday, Josie Altidore got into a scuffle with an El Salvador player a couple of times because the El Salvador player did the thing that I like when players do. He has this mentality. It's the win by any means necessary mentality. I like the mentality, but you've got to go about it in a way that's less whack. Like, you have to go about it in a way that's less goofy than this El Salvadorian player decided. Salvadorian player, because I had a friend from El Salvador, and she would always get mad at me for saying El Salvadorian. You just say Salvadorian. Salvadorian soccer player. He just... I get the any means necessary mentality, but don't win. I don't want you to win by any means necessary. I want you to win by, like, awesome means necessary, right? Like Ronnie Lott in the 80s with the 49ers cut off his own finger to continue playing football. Like, that's by any means necessary that you're like, dang, that guy's a soldier. That's what you want to see when you were watching a guy and he said, I'm going to win by any means necessary. That the Pistons in the 80s, the bad boy Pistons, like, people did not like them, but there's something to respect when you look back on it in retrospect where they're just like, look, we're not the most talented team out there, so we're going to beat you up. We have Isaiah Thomas. He's very talented, and everybody else is just going to beat you up. We have Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, and everyone else's job is to just beat you to death. And they won 2 titles that way. A lot of respect for that. But none of the stuff that they did was whack and goofy. This story infuriates me because it's like, no, this is not okay. So this Salvadorian player, let me see if I can find his name. Henry Romero. was guarding Josie Altidore, who is a mammoth of a human being, right? Like, he's hard to contain generally. And Henry Romero employed Henry Romero employed the playground defense. He twisted Josie Altidore's nipple and bit him on the shoulder. He employed the elementary school playground defense. I understand I understand winning by any means necessary. Don't win with those means. You look like a clown. Do not twist other men's nipples. What are you doing? That is bizarre and strange. That is bizarre and strange. And by the way, when you talk about reasons why Americans do not like soccer, and there are usually unfair reasons, right? Like, people are like, oh, I can't stand the flopping. And it's like, okay, you watch a 90-minute soccer game. A guy might flop once or twice. Like, it's not happening every time up the field. You need to stop like this is a constant parade of things that happens. It isn't. When they flop, it's ridiculous, but it's not constantly happening. If that's your reason for not liking soccer, that's a weak reason. Right? For me, I have a problem with the way, especially in Europe, like the racism just flows liberally from soccer fans. That I have a problem with. But culturally, Americans just don't understand that level of intensity where you want to root for your team so bad, you'll be racist. Americans don't have that. Like, maybe Americans talk to each other that way when I'm not around, but I've never, I go to a Hawks game whenever the Hawks play the Wizards. I go to some of those games, and I'm a Wizards fan. I go out decked out in my Wizards stuff. And I've never had anybody say anything racist to me at a Hawks game. I mean, I've been heckled, but I didn't have anybody say anything racist to me. Right? Like, you go to a European soccer game, the racism flows liberally. Like, that is a problem that I think Americans are like, yeah, I don't know how much we're not into it like that. You know what I mean? It's a little intense. But here's the other thing that Americans don't like. It's just like the stuff that passes for toughness internationally. Americans can't understand it. Like, here's this guy just doing anything it takes to win. And it's like, no, but you pinched his nipples and you bit him. There's nothing manly about that at all. There's nothing manly about that at all. You got to stop biting people, right? I remember the last World Cup, Luis Suarez got suspended from World Cup play because he kept biting people. At no time, right, when we have arguments about whether or not a guy is dirty in sports, at no time is biting and nipple pinching ever on the table. At no singular point is it ever on the table, right? Like, when we talk about Kelly Olynyk, I think Kelly Olynyk is dirty as all get out. I think he is one of the dirtiest basketball players in existence. He pulled Kevin Love's shoulder out of the socket. Okay? And I still have some respect for Kelly Olynyk because that's how Kelly Olynyk makes a roster. Kelly Olynyk can't make a roster if he doesn't pull dudes' shoulders out of their socket. Okay? Zaza Pachulia can't make a roster if he's not punching you in the head. They're just guys. They're just big. They're not great at defense. So they make rosters by being enforcers, by being tough guys, right? Draymond Green could make a roster if he didn't kick people in the undercarriage, but he kicks people in the undercarriage. And even that garners more respect than I'm a grown man and I bit another grown man. Are you 7? How does that work? In your mind, I mean, how does that work? What is the thought process? Josie Altidore is too close to our goal right now. I'm not strong enough to push him out of here. I'll twist his nipple. What is the thought process? Like, honestly, he didn't punch him. He didn't hit him. He didn't try and trip him. He twisted his nipple. And then when Josie Altidore turns around to confront him, this guy, what's his name again? Henry Romero. This guy has the gall to turn around like he got hit. Like, if you're gonna be a punk, like, be unapologetic about it. Don't punk out with playground level defense. Because let's be honest, that's what pinching and biting is. When you're 7, that's your idea of how to win a fight. When you're 6 or 7 years old and you're not confident enough to really throw a punch, right? Because that's what you're in elementary school. You don't want to be in trouble. Like, you're going to be, if you throw a punch, you're in trouble. And you've never thrown a punch before. That's your idea of how to win a fight. I'm going to bite this dude. You get to about middle school, 13, 14 years old. If someone is messing with you, you throw hands. You throw punches back. You do not bite dudes. What are you doing? Like, I don't understand the logic here. Like, this is something that cannot happen in American sports. This is something that can only happen on a soccer pitch in an international game. Like, American soccer players do not do this, right? You're never going to hear about that time that somebody on Chattanooga FC bit some other dude in Birmingham FC. Like, you're not going to hear it because we don't do that in America. Like, culturally, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm not one where I make fun of other people's cultures. I think for me, it's low hanging fruit. It's just, the only thing that I'm making fun of is the fact that I don't understand you. Like, that's not funny to me. I'll leave that to somebody else to try and find the joke in there. But that ain't funny to me. But I will absolutely mock the fact that you thought as a real thing that you were going to do defensively, yeah, I'm going to twist his nipple. That'll stop him from scoring. Yup. Like, no. No. What are you doing? Like, I have respect for dirty players on a level, especially dirty players where it's like, what else do you do? How else would you be on this team? There is some respect for dirty players because dirty players know that that's about to be their reputation forever, right? Like, Tyler Hansborough came out of North Carolina to the NBA. When he was at North Carolina, Tyler Hansborough was known as this fundamental guy. He does all the fundamentals. He does everything the right way. And then Tyler Hansborough got to the NBA. He wasn't good enough to guard anybody defensively. There wasn't anybody that he could score on because he was a tweener, just had that he wasn't really a power forward, wasn't big enough to be a power forward, but he was too big to be a small forward. And he didn't really have handles like that. So there was nothing you could really do with Tyler Hansborough. So Tyler Hansborough just started being a dirty player. Nickname when he was in Charlotte was Psycho T. Okay? That was the nickname that we had for Tyler Hansborough because that's all that he could do to stay in the league. And I got some respect for trying to stay in the league. Like, I don't know what else he's supposed to do. Tyler Hansborough, Kelly Olynyk, Dante Jones, Zaza Pachulia, like, all of these guys are dirty. And it's like, I get why you're dirty. How else are you supposed to still be playing sports if you weren't dirty? What would you actually be good for? Like, Kendrick Perkins was talking about coming back into the NBA. And it's like, why would you come back? You're not good at defense anymore. And you can't score. And you never could score in a league that needs scoring. Like, no one wants Kendrick Perkins back in the league. And Kendrick Perkins, for all the toughness that people respect him for, is not dirty. If Kendrick Perkins were dirty, he'd be on somebody's roster. There are some guys, like, if you're not dirty, like, what are you doing playing sports? How else did you make the team? I have some respect for that. I don't really have as much respect for the guys that don't need to be dirty. Like, Ndamukong Suh is a guy that's dirty, but he doesn't have to be. He's talented enough that he doesn't need to be stomping on people after the play. Like, I don't understand that. But even that, if I had to rate it on a chart, even that is more respectable than I'm twisting this guy's nipple to stop him from scoring. That's the kind of thing that would never happen in an American sport, ever, ever, ever. At least the American sports that we all watch. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. We don't watch water polo, but I watched water polo in the Olympics one time, and I was watching these girls in water polo, and like literally they had the water polo game on a 7-second delay because the girls were pinching each other under the water, and they would show the underwater shots, and it would just be like, why are you pinching that person near their crotch? Why are you pinching that person in their sensitive areas? Why are you doing this? But like water polo is the kind of sport where like no one can see the horrible things you're doing underwater. So they do it. No one can see the awful, awful things that you are doing underwater. So you just go for it. It's a crazy sport, but we don't watch water polo. So that's not considered part of the cultural lexicon, you know? The same way that you would never see somebody try and pinch somebody's nipples in football. You would never see somebody try and bite a guy in a football game. That would be insane. You would never see somebody try and bite a guy in a baseball game, right? And we've seen all kinds of stuff in baseball. We have seen all kinds. You'd never see that in a baseball game. Never. It's insane. It's insanity what that is. This Henry Romero. Only on a soccer field could that happen. Only there and not in this country. It's incredible. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. You know, there's a lot of concern. People have a lot of concern over players skipping bowl games to participate in the NFL. And here's how the headline is. Concern over star players skipping bowl games hasn't slowed among coaches, NFL execs. Dennis Dodd is the one that wrote this article for CBS Sports. And that's crazy. The coaches and NFL execs that think that players are skipping bowl games and that's going to become a trend are insane. Not because they're not right. Like, not because it couldn't become a trend. I'm not going to stand here and predict that that's not a trend. But here's what I'll tell you. Who's done it? Oh, Christian McCaffrey last year and Leonard Fournette last year. So just two guys. It's two guys. Two guys skipped. Two. And one of them was dealing with a nagging injury all year long and skipped out of the first game he didn't have to play. I'm sorry, but two guys is not a trend. Okay? I never took statistics in college because that seemed like a really hard class and I didn't have to take it. They let me take the easy class because I was a journalism major. I didn't have to, like, oh, you don't have to count. Get out of here. So I didn't have to take stats. But my friends who had to take stats, everybody's going on and on and on about what? About sample size, right? Like, people wanted to know when Donald Trump became president, how could the polls be so wrong? How could the polls be so drastically wrong? Well, I mean, when you go back and look at the polls weren't that far off. But the sample size was probably not big enough to account for all the extra Trump voters. And so you end up with off polls. It happens. But even with that sample size, they were wrong. So how can you say that guys skipping out of bowl games is a trend when it's only two guys who have done it? That's not a trend. Okay? Because other big name talents played in their bowl games. Dalvin Cook played in the Orange Bowl, was Orange Bowl MVP. Solomon Thomas, who a lot of people liked, also a high draft pick, played in the same game that Christian McCaffrey did not play in. Guys played in bowl games. How is this a growing fear that this could happen? Two guys is not a trend, right? But even if guys were to start skipping bowl games, first off, Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey skipped the Citrus Bowl and the Sun Bowl. Those are decently large bowl games, but to me, they don't matter. They do not matter, okay? Like 90% of the bowl games do not mean anything. To me, the bowl games that matter are the bowl games that are in the playoff and that win the title. The other bowl games are just fun. I like to just watch fun football, right? Penn State versus USC, that was a fantastic bowl game. I'm glad that it was on, but I didn't need it. No, and I'm not arguing that we get rid of bowl games, but stop acting like if a guy doesn't play in a bowl game, the sky's on fire. Now, if a guy chose not to play in a bowl game that could win him a ring, like if a guy chose not to play in a bowl game that could win a championship for his school, I have concerns. If you don't play in the Citrus Bowl, I'm not really tripping on you. I really am not. It's just not big enough of a problem for me. If you choose not to play in the Sun Bowl, the world's not going to end. Right? Like, guys are playing in bowl games. Okay, this is not about to become this master trend where everybody decides not to play. Leonard Fournette was injured, and Christian McCaffrey, and I don't know if you've noticed what it is with Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey essentially was doing everything that Leonard Fournette was doing leading up to the draft, right? Christian McCaffrey declared after Leonard Fournette declared for the draft. Christian McCaffrey decided he wasn't playing after Leonard Fournette decided he wasn't playing. Really, only one guy's decision mattered in this entire process. How is that a trend? Yeah. Just what you're afraid of is going to happen is not the same thing as what is going to happen, right? One is your fear and the other is reality. One is your negative fantasy, because that's all a fear is a negative fantasy, and the other is real life. Okay? Two missed out on bowl games. That's not a trend by any stretch of the imagination or any definition of the word. Much with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let me help you live a better life. Hi, Loretta Lynn here. It's a free consult. Call me today. Look, I'll even give you a free bottle of essential oil. 423-605-4719. Loretta Lynn's Essential Oils. They've been around for thousands of years. They can even be an alternative to pesticides in your garden. Call today. That's 423-605-4719 and take control of your health.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
The Homeschool Expo is just ahead, Friday and Saturday at Camp Jordan. It's the biggest education event of the year, dozens of workshops, 70 exhibitors, math, writing, software, books, English, piano, colleges, history, free personal advice, education experts everywhere. You name it, we've got it. Go to csthea.org, csthea.org, 9 to 6 Friday, 9 to 4 Saturday.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
My name is Trevor Atchley. I'm an attorney here with the law firm McCoon, Williams, Atchley, and Stanley. We have a show on Nooga Radio called Legal Bites, where we discuss legal topics of interest to our listeners: estate planning, business formation, and business transactions. Legal Bites, 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
The Homeschool Expo is just ahead, Friday and Saturday at Camp Jordan. It's the biggest education event of the year. Dozens of workshops, 70 exhibitors, math, writing, software, books, English, piano, colleges, history, free personal advice, education experts everywhere. You name it, we've got it. Go to csthea.org, csthea.org, 9 to 6 Friday, 9 to 4 Saturday.
Hi, this is Nadia behind the green door. You've had ice cream and you've had shaved ice, but have you had snow cream? It is amazing. It's light, airy, fruity snowflakes melting on your tongue. You need to come and see us. Highway 58, green door next to Hardee's.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with her innovative shared marketing management concept that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospect so you can focus on the project. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, Schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it. The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
WBLG HD4 Ooltewah, W224AZ Chattanooga,
WSDT Sunny Daisy Chattanooga. O.J. Simpson's prison term will end after 9 years.
I am sorry that things turned out the way that they did.
After showing frustration with the Attorney General,
the White House says Mr. Trump still has confidence in Jeff Sessions.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. He was engaged and animated, seen on a video hookup from Nevada's Lovelock Correctional Center. O.J. Simpson at his parole hearing today.
I've done my time. I've done it as well and as respectfully as I think anybody can.
Simpson, age 70, wore a blue denim shirt, had short gray hair, as he told the Nevada Parole Board.
I have not complained for 9 years. All I've done is try to be helpful and encourage the guys around there. Hey, man, do your time, fight in court, and don't do anything that's going to extend your time.
At a table next to Simpson, memorabilia dealer Bruce Fromong. In September 2007, Simpson and others entered his Vegas hotel room as the former football star tried to retrieve personal property.
It's time to give him a second chance. It's time for him to go home to his family, his friends.
Fromong has reconciled with him now after Simpson's conviction for kidnapping and armed robbery.
This is a good man. He made a mistake. And if he called me tomorrow and said, Bruce, I'm getting out, will you pick me up? Juice, I'll be here tomorrow.
At today's hearing, O.J. Simpson's daughter, Arnell, testified.
He has spent the last 9 years in Lovelock and has been a perfect inmate, following all the rules and making the best of the situation.
When spending nearly 9 years behind bars, Simpson said,
I took 2 courses called Alternative to Violence. I think it's the most important course anybody in this prison can take because it teaches you how to deal with conflict.
The 4-member parole board took a recess. Then Commissioner Tony Cordes cited these factors.
We're a low risk to reoffend on our guidelines. You have community support and stable release plans.
O.J. Simpson waited nearly 9 years to hear this.
I do vote to grant parole.
The other 3 parole board members agreed, so he's getting out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Legal analyst Andrew Cohen says when Simpson does get out in October,
he will have a series of conditions attached to his parole that will allow officials to track virtually every aspect of his life, from his travel plans to his drinking habits.
Simpson plans to resettle in Florida. President Trump unhappy that Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia probe, but he's not looking to replace Sessions, who today said,
"We love this job, we love this department, and I plan to continue to do so as long as that is appropriate."
FBI Director nominee Chris Wray gets a thumbs up from the Senate Judiciary Committee, told members, including Dianne Feinstein, he'll support the Russia probe run by special counsel Robert Mueller.
We will hold him to these words.
The Dow lost 28. Now this.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%, APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to quickenloans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
A Grammy winner, Chester Bennington, did a lot with rock, hip-hop, and rap. The lead singer for Linkin Park found dead at home today near L.A. The band had just put out an album. A U.S. tour was to kick off next week. Bennington had fought drug and alcohol issues in the past, and the coroner's looking at his death as an apparent suicide. Chester Bennington was a friend of Chris Cornell, the Soundgarden singer who committed suicide this spring, and today would have been Cornell's 53rd birthday. Flying stateside from the Mideast, Bill Rakoff says the laptop ban has been lifted.
The move comes as DHS officials say large airports in the Middle East have stepped up their security game to include more thorough checking of electronic devices and additional random screening of passengers. A laptop ban had been imposed earlier this year at 10 Middle
news and
Eastern
information.
airports.
Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240. Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops say a woman's been shot on Cypress Street courts at 1:30 a.m. Thursday morning. Her body was apparently pulled out of an apartment building, and an investigation is ongoing. Findings of a year-long investigation into possible conflict of interest in the sheriff's office in Bradley County regarding Sheriff Eric Watson have been turned into a grand jury. The findings of the investigation have not yet been disclosed, and no charges have been filed as of now. Jonathan E. Walker, the driver of the bus involved in the Woodmore bus crash, is charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, but his attorney believes that he should be put in an alternative sentencing program which would divert him out of the criminal justice system. The plan will be put before a judge for consideration. The county commission has rescinded a resolution in a 7-2 vote, which would have required the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau to follow county purchasing, travel, and expense policies. Commissioners Tim Boyd and Randy Fairbanks voted to keep the resolution in place. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Staying quite warm and muggy out there through your nighttime hours with fair skies, lows 72 to 75. For Friday, a very hot, humid day, highs in many areas soaring into the mid-90s, mainly dry. For Saturday, an isolated afternoon shower storm possible back into the lower 90s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Now, me being a radio guy, I'm really not good with vehicles. Never changed my own oil, can barely change a tire. And sometimes when I hear a clanking, I just turn the radio up louder. Not a real good idea. So I need to be able to trust someone when they look at my vehicle. Well, I found the guys. Locally owned and operated here in Chattanooga. It's Precision Tune Auto Care. They're your neighbors. There's 3 locations in Chattanooga. And since they're Nooga Radio's official oil change center, they're going to extend the great deal they give to us to you. Just $20 for a standard oil change. Can you imagine that? $20 for a standard oil change. You're in and out in no time. $20 for a standard oil change at Precision Tune Auto Care. And they treat all of their customers like family. With show and tell, they'll show you what's wrong, point out the problems, and tell you exactly what it will take to get fixed. They really do have pride in what they do at Precision Tune Auto Care. Precision Tune Auto Care with 3 locations: 2125 Gun Barrel Road, Chattanooga, 4221 Hickson Pike, and Highway 58 next to Dunkin' Donuts. Call 602-5955. That's 602-5955. Precision Tune Auto Care.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
Howdy, Chattanooga. You're listening to Watch with Dion Rose. That's the show, Nooga Radio. That is our station. NoogaRadio.com is our website. On our website, by the way, make sure to go down to YouTube and subscribe. We've got all of our local shows, all of our local content on there. Make sure you go to Facebook and follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all of that good stuff. So I've been thinking a lot about the SEC East. I think that there are a lot of different ways that the SEC East can play out. Because honestly, when you talk about parity, and this is how I know nobody actually likes parity in sports, because the SEC East actually is filled with parity, right? The West is too, actually. Like, if you ignore Alabama, and you do have to ignore Alabama, the West actually is filled with quite a decent amount of parity. Because, is Auburn good? Well, that depends on Jarrett Stidham, doesn't it? Is LSU good? Well, that depends on Matt Canada, doesn't it? How terrible will Texas A&M be? Better or worse than Ole Miss? I mean, there's a decent amount of parity in the SEC. You just have to ignore the fact that Alabama exists to find it. And it's easier to ignore the fact that Alabama exists to find it if you watch the SEC East, because that's about as wide open a division in any league in college football, right? North or south of the Pac-12, whatever the divisions are called in the Big Ten, north or south in the ACC, the Big 12 doesn't have divisions. This is about as wide open a thing as exists, right? Because, I mean, nobody else is that wide open. Nobody else is that wide open. You would have to think. Right? Like, I mean, because take the Pac-12, for example. I'm not going to delve into the weeds of the Pac-12. But you take the Pac-12, for example. Washington's got the Pac-12 North locked up. Okay? And so far as we are ready to acknowledge, USC's got the Pac-12 South locked up. Like, where's the interest? There's no parity there. Now, take a look at the SEC East. Who's the best team in the East? If you said Georgia or Florida, you might be right. But don't sleep on Kentucky. Right? Like, I was earlier this week, I was like, I don't think Kentucky can win the SEC East. Like, I had trouble buying into Kentucky earlier this week. And then I started to look real hard at Kentucky's schedule. And let me tell you something, because schedule is everything. There's just enough difficulty on Kentucky's schedule. You have to take them seriously. But it's all beatable for them. Kentucky could have a breakout year next year, legitimately. That schedule is easy enough. And they only have to figure out how to beat Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee. 2 out of those 3 teams can go down, right? And it's college football. Like, it only takes like one fluky game to come away with that. And then you've got the rest of their schedule where they're clearly not going to be out here losing to Southern Miss or Eastern Kentucky or Eastern Michigan. Clearly. So every team in the SEC East has got an if. What does it take for them to be successful? And here it is, Kentucky. Let's start with Kentucky because we were just talking about Kentucky. The big if for Kentucky is if their talent lives up to the potential that everybody says that they've got. They're returning a bunch of guys, didn't really lose a bunch of talent. So the continuity is strong. And they beat Florida and Tennessee. They have to beat Florida and Tennessee, in my opinion. Because Tennessee is within their reach to beat, which I know Tennessee fans don't want to hear that, but it's within their reach to beat. And if Malik Zaire struggles, Florida could potentially be, because Florida's only going to be as good as their quarterback is. That's basically what's been holding them back this entire time. They finally have a guy who can throw the ball. Either that guy throws the ball well or he does not. If he does not, then Kentucky can beat him. Absolutely. South Carolina, their big if. Offense surprised us last year and found its stride, but the defense needs to catch up and be much more consistent than it had been. That's going to be the case, but I don't know. That's a very big if for South Carolina. Missouri. Barry Odom needs to show up and install his culture. But more importantly, plays like the best quarterback in the East. Because there's some good quarterbacks in the East. There's Jake Bentley. There's Jacob Eason. There's potentially Malik Zaire and or Felipe Franks. There's Kyle Shermer over at Vanderbilt. So you've got talented quarterbacks in the East, and Drew Lock, if Missouri is going to be any kind of successful, is going to have to outplay all of them. Is going to have to outplay all of those guys. Right? Vandy. Here's the big if for Vandy. Vandy, sound defense. Worst school last year to get into a low-scoring game with. Vanderbilt. Didn't want to get into a low-scoring affair with them. If you found by the fourth quarter you had only scored 6 points, you could lose to Vanderbilt. And I'm telling you, nothing's going to change on that. That could repeat itself again. Find yourself with, 3 points, 6 points headed into the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt can beat you. Now, Vanderbilt did not score very much themselves and didn't score consistently. If Vanderbilt can consistently find scoring when they need it, they will be successful. It's a solid if, but this team gets more mature every year at running back, and he is, so far as I know, Bill Commodore of the last 10 years. I mean, guy's been automatic. Vanderbilt can find some consistent scoring, they'll be successful. Georgia will be successful if Jacob Eason. That's the end of the sentence. Not if Jacob Eason plays well. If Jacob Eason is anything like we thought Jacob Eason was going to be last year, right? We thought Jacob Eason was going to be great last year. He's a 5-star quarterback, but guess what? He was a true freshman, and no matter who you are, being a true freshman quarterback is difficult, especially when you've got the new coach and the new system and the new offense and everybody's struggling to find their footing. We need to see more out of Jacob Eason, but it's going to be tough when you're a freshman quarterback, okay? A true freshman quarterback. Matthew Stafford, so far as people I've talked to here that have covered the SEC for years longer than I have, talk about Matthew Stafford like he's the best quarterback they've ever seen. And he didn't start as a true freshman. So no, Jacob Eason's not necessarily going to be right out the box just glorious. But I think next year he makes more steps into becoming a more polished passer. I just think more time getting to know the system is going to help. And there are people in the media, the College Football Podcast is a very good podcast, but they believe that Jacob Eason is what held back the offense. And or they believe the offense is what held back Jacob Eason. I always think the other way around. If the offense is held back, I blame the quarterback. I don't blame the quarterback for a bad offense. I don't blame the offense for a bad quarterback. I blame the quarterback for a bad offense. And Jacob Eason was completing 55% of his passes last year. And sure, you can blame the offense on that in some part. This is a symbiotic relationship after all. But overwhelmingly, I blame Jacob Eason. Okay? I saw some of the throws that he made where they weren't accurate throws, especially downfield, which, is his forte. He's going to have to do a whole lot better at that. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. We're talking about the big ifs for every SEC team. Tennessee. If the Vols have answers to the talent that they lost, the big names specifically, because actually, when you look at the Vols roster, a lot of guys came back. But the big names, Josh Dobbs and Alvin Kamara and Derek Barnett and Reeves Maben, like you've got a bunch of guys that were big impact players that stayed healthy all season. You lost them. You're going to have to figure out a way to replace that level of stardom. And I'll add this to the list as well because I didn't have it written down before, but Tennessee's got to stay healthy. I don't know who you blame, like the entire training staff last year, but that was an illogical number of injuries last year. Tennessee has got to stay healthy. If they are unhealthy again, I fire the whole training staff. Like, I don't know if that's an intelligent thing to do. I'm just saying somebody got to go because you can't be that injury prone as a team 2 years in a row and somebody's not at fault. Last year, it was irrational how many injuries Tennessee had, to the point where Josh Dobbs is on the sideline, and this is what I heard from a reporter buddy of mine who was at the game. Josh Dobbs was on the sideline shaking the hands of offensive linemen that he had never really talked to before. Like, he didn't know them. That's a problem. You can't win games like that. You simply cannot. Got to stay healthy. And finally, Florida. If Florida can get the most out of Malik Zaire, if it's Zaire who starts, or Felipe Franks, if it's Franks who gets the start, my imaginings are that if Malik Zaire is Malik Zaire, he's injury prone, and his injury history. He was injured 3 out of the 4 years he was at Notre Dame. He had a rocky year last year, but part of it was he only played 6 games. Right? Like, Deshaun Kaiser really became a household name because he filled in for Malik Zaire. In fact, a lot of the Notre Dame quarterbacks that have passed through there over the last few years have gotten their chances in large part because Malik Zaire cannot stay healthy. If he stays healthy and they get a lot out of him, or if he goes down and they get a lot out of Franks, then, yeah, Florida's going to be fine. Florida's going to be better than fine. And I think that it's going to come down to some kind of Florida-Georgia foot race with Kentucky probably lurking in the darkness, waiting for their opportunity to strike. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So I am a big fan of making fun of Chris Christie because he is a person who is worthy of being made fun of because he's a clown. So Chris Christie was at a baseball game, and I don't even know if there's a great way to set this story up. Because Chris Christie was at a baseball game, he caught a foul ball and was booed, right? And his excuse given for why he was booed was that he is a politician. And that's crazy because, it's not why you got booed. You got booed not just because you're a politician, because you're a politician that nobody likes. Chris Christie is a politician that nobody likes. Okay? Like, people are not going to boo Obama, right? People like Barack Obama. People are going to boo George W. Bush. Like, given enough distance from Bush's presidency, people don't dislike George W. Bush. He's a pretty likable dude. Like, you're not just going to boo him because you don't detest him. You people detest Chris Christie, right? Like, there's a reason why people are booing you, right? 2 weeks before, there's a government shutdown of the government of New Jersey. The beaches get shut down. All the public places get shut down because the government can't afford to spend any more money on other public places, et cetera, et cetera. And Chris Christie goes to the beach that is shut down and that nobody should be using. He took his family to the beach. And when people talked to him about it, Chris Christie said, well, I got to go to the beach because I'm the governor. That's why nobody likes you. But I get to go to this place that's closed down because I'm the governor. That's why nobody likes you. You huge idiot. That's why nobody likes you. Like, well, how is this a mystery? Right? Like the time that Chris Christie went to a New York Jets game and spent thousands of dollars on food. Thousands. Which I don't even know how that's possible. He spent thousands of dollars on food, which would be fine, right? It would be fine if he spent thousands of dollars on food. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy for his weight too much. He deserves a little bit, but not too much. But it was taxpayer money. He spent thousands of dollars of taxpayer money on food at a football game. How are you so unaware of why it is that people don't like you? Look, because there are people in this world that are in denial about whether or not it is that people like them. You wonder whether or not people like you. There's a good way to tell, okay? If you woke up this morning and you met a jerk, someone was just in your face and they were, being rude to you. You woke up this morning and you met a jerk, you met a jerk. If you woke up this morning and everybody you meet is a jerk, you're the jerk and nobody likes you. Right? Chris Christie, everywhere he goes, people boo him and mock him. Even the president just makes fun of him for no reason. Why? Because nobody likes Chris Christie. And it is somehow over Chris Christie's head to understand that nobody likes him. And here's the best part about the entire Chris Christie story, which is that Chris Christie wanted to work at WFAN, the big sports station in New York, being a drive time sports radio host. Now, I have some experience in this arena, as this is actually my job. People don't have to love you. People don't have to love you if you're a drive time radio host or a radio host at any hour. People don't have to love you. People don't even have to like you, but they can't hate you. How does Chris Christie not realize that if everybody hates him, he cannot be a radio personality? Okay? Especially when your thing is, I'm going to shut down the beach and just take my family while your family can't go. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars of your money feeding me at a football game. And then those same people have to now call you up on the radio and talk to you like they like you when they hate you. You never had a chance. Chris Christie never had a chance. What a clown. What a clown. Who told him that that was possible? This is the number one example, by the way, of simply not having friends that tell you the truth. I have friends who tell me the truth. I have friends who tell me the truth a little too willingly. Might hurt my feelings a little bit. You know what I mean? Just go, I have friends that get at me. This is a little too happy to tell me the truth. But I'll take that over whatever it is that Chris Christie has going on, where he wants to be a radio host, and not one person who claims that they love him thought that was a bad idea. How can you be a radio host? Nobody likes you. Again, people don't have to love you. People don't have to like you. But if everybody hates you, that's a problem. Even if it's 50-50, right? Like 50% of the people like you and 50% of the people hate you, that's doable, right? Because then that's controversial. That's polarizing. People tune into you just to disagree, right? Like Sean Hannity is polarizing. Rush Limbaugh is polarizing. The people that love Rush, love Rush. The people that hate Rush, hate Rush. The people that love Chris Christie, it's like his wife. That's one person, right? And maybe his children, but I'm not going to promise that. I don't know. And the people that hate Chris Christie so far outnumber the people that actually like him, he can't be a radio host. Like, marginal likability, marginal, because I'm not even saying I'm exceptionally likable. Marginal likability is part of the job description. What is he doing? And a good indicator that your whole radio career is not going to work is if you go to a Mets game, right? You want to be a sports radio host. You go to a baseball game, you catch a foul ball, and everyone in the stadium boos. Literally, the announcer at the baseball game said your name in disgust. You shouldn't be a public figure anymore. Well, you didn't have enough? Like, people didn't boo you because you're a politician clown. They booed you because they don't like you. Like, your job is not the only reason why they don't like you. It's how you do your job, right? That's like being someone who's an insurance agent, and insurance companies, you know, are sometimes their interests feel like they're at odds with the interests of their customers. And so people get really upset with their insurance providers. But that would be like saying if you did a job as an insurance company poorly, right? Like, customer of yours got into an accident, you never gave them the money on time that they needed to fix their car, they lost their job because they couldn't fix their car, and then they drop you, they write a horrible review about you, they tell everybody, don't use them, and then you're just like, you know what? Everybody hates insurance companies. Nah, man, they just hate you because you were doing a bad job. Everybody doesn't like politicians, but we don't hate all politicians. We just hate Chris Christie. We just hate Chris Christie. That's it. That's like a short list. We hate him. We know we all hate him. Punch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. What else we got here? Josie Altior gets his nipples pinched, and we devalue Emmitt Smith. Next.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga cops say a woman's been shot on Cypress Street courts at 1:30 a.m. Thursday morning. Her body was apparently pulled out of an apartment building, and an investigation is ongoing. Findings of a year-long investigation into possible conflict of interest in the sheriff's office in Bradley County regarding Sheriff Eric Watson have been turned into a grand jury. The findings of the investigation have not yet been disclosed. and no charges have been filed as of now. Jonathan E. Walker, the driver of the bus involved in the Woodmore bus crash, is charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, but his attorney believes that he should be put in an alternative sentencing program which would divert him out of the criminal justice system. The plan will be put before a judge for consideration. The county commission has rescinded a resolution in a 7-2 vote, which would have required the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau to follow county purchasing, travel, and expense policies. Commissioners Tim Boyd and Randy Fairbanks voted to keep the resolution in place. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Staying quite warm and muggy out there through your nighttime hours with fair skies, lows 72 to 75. For Friday, a very hot, humid day, highs in many areas soaring into the mid-90s, mainly dry. For Saturday, an isolated afternoon shower storm possible back into the lower 90s. McBriar Realty is now Real Living Southern Realty, serving the entire tri-state area. Find your dream home now with Real Living Southern Realty. For their complete listings and more, rlsouthernrealty.com. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the #1 Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. And boy, the stuff you see in soccer, you wouldn't believe. I mean, try to imagine a context where some of the things you see in soccer would happen in American sports. And we get mad about all of those things. The things that we can't deal with in soccer. The prejudice flows too freely. It flows too freely. Like the racism in European soccer matches, you hear the stuff that people say, it's too free. Like I went to an Atlanta Hawks game and all my Wizards stuff for the Wizards game, and people didn't leave me alone. They heckled me. They're supposed to heckle me, but it wasn't racist. You know what I mean? Like people didn't make it about who I was as a person. It was, or as the color of my skin. They were just like, you're a bad person because you're a Wizards fan. How do you live with yourself being a Wizards fan? And the answer to that question, by the way, is weeping all the time. Every offseason, I weep some more. That's how I handle it. That's the only way I can handle it. They didn't make it about my race. They didn't seem to suggest that there was something wrong racially with me. It flows too freely in Europe. Like there's a little too free. And then the other stuff that happens in soccer that we just have no context for is that people tie all the time, and it's okay, right? We have ties in American sports, believe it or not. Like every year there's an NFL tie, and every year I have friends that are like, what? Wait, you can do that? No way. We have ties in football? Word? Yeah, we have ties in football. It just doesn't happen frequently, and we're all upset when it happens, right? Like I root for the Redskins. The Redskins tied the Bengals last year, and nothing confused me more than that. I was like, we should have just lost. Like if we were just going to waste my time and tie, we should have just lost. And we don't have any patience for that in American sports. And another thing that we don't have patience for in soccer, which I think this is actually our worst reason for not liking soccer, is the flopping. We don't like the flopping. But I actually think that that's not the problem. Because when you watch an entire 90-minute soccer game, the flopping to actual game played ratio is not that high. It isn't. You might get a couple in a game. The issue with the flopping is we don't like the way that Europeans flop. And we don't like the way that soccer players flop. Because guys flop in the NBA all the time, and guys will throw their head back and just kind of wander around like, oh, I've been concussed. And then they'll stand straight up because we all know you're lying, right? We don't like it when a player flops and they look like they died. Just laid out on the ground. They're writhing around in pain. They got hit lightly on their elbow, but they're grabbing their head. Like, we don't like any of that stuff. That stuff is annoying to us. It bothers us. We can't take it, right? There's nothing worse than soccer flopping, but it doesn't happen as often as we make it out to be. But I also think that soccer players have a different mentality than other athletes, especially when you look at the context of the sport internationally. When you look at it internationally, there are things that people do that is very similar to what we have going on in American sports. The mentality across all sports, across all competitive men is the same. Win by any means necessary. And by and large, that's a mindset that we like. We like the win by any means necessary. We like the guys like Ronnie Lott with the 49ers in the 80s cut off his finger to keep playing football. Like, we are okay with that. We are okay even with the 80s, the bad boys, right? Like, sure, a lot of people hated the bad boys because they thought they were dirty, but a lot of people were like, look, they did what they had to do to win, and they came away with 2 rings. Like, it's hard to argue with the result that they came up with, you know? And then we've got a number of players, like, say, in the NBA, that, honest to goodness, if they weren't dirty players, what on earth would they do in the league, right? Like Tyler Hansborough, fundamental player, great fundamental player, in college at North Carolina, comes into the NBA and just becomes this dirty guy. Literally, his nickname was Psycho T. Why? Because that's how Tyler Hansborough had to stay in the league. What would Kelly Olynyk do if he couldn't shoot threes and pull elbows and shoulders out of sockets? He wouldn't be in the league. Dante Jones wouldn't be in the league, right? Like, most of these guys that are just injuring people would not be in the league without that mentality. And we appreciate on some level, the mentality. But the soccer game yesterday with the United States men's national team and El Salvador got ridiculous because Josie Altidore was being guarded by Henry Romero. And Henry Romero decided that he had an interesting twist on what he was going to do to stop Josie Altidore from scoring on him, right? He employed the elementary school playground defense. Henry Romero twisted Josie Altidore's nipple and bit him on the shoulder. Now, I don't know what happens when you're a grown man that causes that to happen to you. I don't know what you have to be thinking as a grown man to do that to another grown man. And I know already I'm talking to you about the cultural context and all of this stuff. That doesn't fly in America. There is, even in American soccer, right? And we, like, our local team is Chattanooga FC. Even in American soccer, I never heard of anybody biting anybody, giving somebody a nurple. What are you doing? That is the elementary school playground defense, right? Like, when you get into a fight in elementary school, at least for me, I was afraid to throw punches in elementary school. People would fight me. I would bite them. I just bite you. That seems effective. If I bite you, for whatever reason, you stop. Seemed effective to me, right? Like, you get to middle school and you're 13, 14 years old. Yeah, you throw hands because you're starting to become an adult. But there are like, I'm backing off of the by any means necessary is what I'm saying. We don't need to use all means. If one of the means necessary for you to win is to twist another man's nipple, let it go. Let it go. You don't need to win that bad. You were just not talented enough to win by conventional means. Let it go. Let it go. I'd rather you punch that guy in his face than bite him on the shoulder. Right? And it's perfect because I like Josie Altidore's response to it all after the game. He said, my girl is mad at me. She's mad at me, and she's mad at Romero. She's like, only I can bite you. Only I can grab your nipples, that's the only context where that makes sense. When one adult does that to another adult, that's the only context that makes sense. And certainly not while you're competing. Like, there are things that happen in the heat of battle. You're just going at, like, I play pickup basketball every weekend, and there are things that happen in the heat of battle. There are things that happen while you're playing. You're going at it, and maybe someone catches you with an elbow. Maybe you push a guy. But at no point is a nipple grab in the picture. I never thought to myself, this guy is taking me to school. I cannot stop him, right? I'm a terrible post defender, right? I love guarding guys that are perimeter guys that shoot threes, guys that slash to the basket. I like guarding you. I don't really like to guard guys in the post. I'm not very much of a good post defender. But if someone catches me in the post and they're taking me to school, right? They just dropped 8, 10, 12 straight points on me. I'm going to start pushing you more. I'm going to start getting up on your space more, making you uncomfortable. I'm not thinking to myself, let me grab your nipple. Let me bite your shoulder. That it doesn't cross my mind. It's such a weird thing to think in the heat of battle. That's something you would actually have to think to do. That's not a heat of the moment decision. And then now I have to start disseminating all your other thought processes. You're a grown man. That's another grown man. How? Why? For what? For what? Like, even if you do some craziness in the World Cup, right? It's the World Cup. In the World Cup final, remember when Zidane headbutted that one guy, that one Italian dude? That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. He just lost his mind and headbutt a guy. But that even feels like a more natural, in the heat of the moment thing than just I'm gonna twist it. I'm gonna give him the greatest nurple in the history of nurples. And then this Henry Romero, after he twisted Altidor's nipple and Altidor turned around to face him, the guy flopped. The guy turned around like he was the one that got hit. Like, it would never happen in America. That would never happen in American sports. I hope Henry Romero can keep finding work overseas because he can't play in the MLS. We'd skewer him. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I'm going to shift gears here to the NFL a little bit because a thing is happening that I was not aware that was happening in the NFL, which is that somehow people are trying to devalue the career of Emmitt Smith, which is odd because Emmitt Smith's great. Like, I don't think that anybody ever thought about Emmitt Smith and thought, well, that guy's just an average back. And I understand that Emmitt Smith played on a dynamic offense, right? He played on a dynamic offense, and the offensive line was great. He played behind a great line. And when you're ranking the great running backs of all time, maybe you've got guys ahead of Emmitt Smith, right? Like maybe you've got Jim Brown ahead of Emmitt Smith. Maybe you saw the trash that Detroit was doing to Barry Sanders and thought, well, I'm going to put Barry ahead of Emmitt. That's fine. But in terms of taking value away from Emmitt Smith's career, this is happening, and I was not aware that it was happening. Right? Now, he's got the perfect response to it, which is, he said at the end of the day, 18,355 speaks for itself, which is the total number of yards that Emmitt Smith racked up in his career. And ain't nobody touching that one, right? That record is stuck, especially as we start to switch to a more pass-happy NFL. 18,355, that's just what it is from here on out, right? Like we're probably not going to see another NFL running back capable of breaking that over the course of a career. And I get it. Like, if a guy has a great offensive line, you give credit to his offensive line too. That doesn't mean he's garbage. But I think there is some level of people want to devalue the careers of guys in the past. And it's something that's unfair. And it's unfair in whichever direction that it travels, whether it's past to future or future to past. When it travels past to future, which I think is the most common version of it, where you just got the old dudes going, well, back in my day, we had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is greater than the basketball player to ever live. I don't know about no Jordan. Like, there are people out there, they're hard to find, but there are people out there that attest to this day, Michael Jordan is not better than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? We don't even get to have the Kobe LeBron conversation. They're still stuck on Kareem, right? That's the back in my day people. And they devalue everything that's happening right now because back in the day, it was better. And we see it with the Warriors. It's the most common way that this happens is with the Warriors because the Warriors are shattering so many records. They're revolutionizing the way that basketball works. And people are like, well, we could beat the Warriors. Right? And there's some people that could. Like the 96 Bulls absolutely could. I feel like the 2001 Kobe Shaq Lakers probably could. Like there are teams that could, but not all of these old guys stepping up saying their team could beat the Warriors could actually beat the Warriors. Right? Like it got to be too much where everybody had to pipe up and say, no. We could beat them too. But the devaluing of someone's production and the devaluing of someone's career works the other way as well, where people in the present try and devalue the career of people in the past. And that's what's happening with Emmitt Smith. They're trying to devalue him. And to me, it's like, okay, the Cowboys had the triplets back in the 90s, right? They had Troy Aikman, they had Emmitt Smith, they had Michael Irvin. If anybody on that team should be devalued, it needs to be Troy Aikman, who's the most touchdowns that Troy Aikman ever threw in a season. Go look it up. Is 20. Troy Aikman never broke 20 his whole career in a single season. And you could say, well, they didn't pass the ball as much back then. Okay, but he's not in the same conversation with like Marino. They didn't throw the ball that much back then, and guys were still shattering 20. I don't want to hear that. If anybody should be devalued, that's Troy Aikman. We could go without Aikman. But Emmitt? Why would you want to devalue Emmitt Smith? When the running back was king, arguably the last time the running back was king, why are you trying to take away from that? And obviously, it's to justify the way that the game has gone. Like, we don't really need running backs like that anymore. So we're going to take away from the guys who did it in the past to justify why we're not really using running backs in the present. The problem with that argument is actually twofold, right? Like the first part of that argument being incorrect is that actually we still like running backs. Maybe we don't like running backs as much as we used to, but if you look at where Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey got drafted in this draft, we still like running backs. They still have value, right? It's the same thing when you look at the NBA and everybody's like, well, we don't really need bigs anymore. This is a guards league. Like, no, you can't win a championship without bigs. They don't have to be the best players on your team anymore, but you can't win a championship without bigs. That's crazy. You use them differently. Bigs nowadays shoot threes. Karl Anthony Towns, Kristaps Porzingis. Like the bigs these days shoot outside. Also, they play in the post. Also, they rebound. Also, they run the floor. We just use them differently than we used to. Same thing with the NFL running back. We don't run guys between the tackles like we used to. But the running back still has value. Go ask the Atlanta Falcons if the running back has value with all that work that they get out of Devontae Freeman. Ask him if he still has value. But they use him in the passing game. They use him as a blocker. We've just used them differently, and guys are not going to be able to reach the heights that Emmitt was able to reach, right? Like 18,355 yards. No one's touching that. We just don't use them like that anymore. But there's no reason to take away from what Emmitt did. There's no reason to take that away from him so you can feel good about, well, no one's going to reach 18,000. So, like that, what does that have to do with anything? There's no reason to believe that. And there's no reason to do that to him. And it is unfair to devalue the production of teams and players, whether you do it from future to past or past to future. You can't do that because the history of the game is about evolution, right? And the all-time great running backs, like when you look at guys that Walter Payton and Jim Brown and Barry Sanders, And guys that maybe you might look at and go, the talent was higher than what Emmett had. And Emmett played on a better team. I think that's fair to acknowledge, but he still gets to sit at the table. To me, a lot of this greatest of all time stuff is useless, absolutely useless. This is not about who is the actual greatest of all time. For me, I hate those conversations. I mean, I attest, I think LeBron is the best player I've ever seen in my life. I only just saw the tail end of Jordan. But that being said, do you get to be good enough to have a seat at the table? LeBron gets a seat at the table. Kobe gets a seat at the table. Jordan gets a seat at the table. Bird and Magic get a seat at the table. Not everybody's getting there. Like Karl Malone doesn't get a seat at the table. He's great, but he doesn't get a seat at the table. That's the way that I prefer to think about it, because then you get to stop with these petty arguments of, well, look at this. LeBron is just a more efficient shooter than Jordan was. And it's like, okay, but I saw Michael Jordan make a layup with his back to the basket while he was doing a 360 in the air. Like, I've just never seen that. You can stop your nerdy conversations when you go, okay, does the guy deserve a seat at the table or not? I didn't watch Walter Payton. I was not born yet, okay? I didn't watch Jim Brown. But does Emmett get a seat at the same table with those guys? He absolutely does. Like, the production speaks for itself, right? Like, the greatest quarterback conversation of all time kind of thing is like, yeah, you kind of have to be teamed up with the right coach and the right defense and the right era and all of this stuff. So does the 6 rings make Brady better than Montana? Then you end up with the stupidest argument. Like, if you had to choose in an all-time fantasy draft of players, and you got to choose first, and you took Brady and I took Montana, did I lose? No, I did not. I did not. Why? Because both of those guys deserve a seat at the table, right? Along with Peyton Manning and Johnny Unitas. It gets to throw away all that useless ring counting that everybody tries to do to prop up arguments, to just say, hey, all these guys are great enough to be in this conversation, and everybody else kind of isn't. Emmitt Smith was great, and you all freaking know it. Watch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Make sure to check out our website, noogaradio.com. Remember, folks, at least for this show, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you all in 24 hours.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies.